Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about Helen Bradford Thompson Woolley, an early psychologist whose work challenged major assumptions about gender, intelligence, and development, and whose influence is still seen in psychology today. So who is Helen Bradford Thompson Woolley and why does she matter? Woolley is important because she questioned widely accepted beliefs that women were intellectually inferior to men. At the time, these ideas were often treated as scientific fact, even though they weren't based on strong evidence. Instead of accepting those assumptions, Woolley used research and data to test them, helping psychology become a more scientific and evidence-based field. Helen Bradford Thompson Woolley was born on November 6, 1874, in Englewood, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, during a period of rapid industrial growth and significant social change in the United States. She was the daughter of Paul Thompson and Isabella Perkins Thompson, and sister to Jane and Lillian. Her family valued education and supported her ambition and drive to succeed. Little is actually known about her childhood activities, but historical accounts indicate that Thompson was highly intelligent and serious about her studies, which set her apart from many girls of her time. Growing up in a changing urban environment exposed Thompson to diverse social issues, from class and inequality to labor conditions to education and women's rights. These broader cultural influences shaped her early worldview and later interest in social reform and education equity. Unlike many women of her generation, Thompson was encouraged by her parents to continue her education rather than focus solely on domestic responsibilities. After receiving a scholarship to the University of Chicago, Woolley initially intended to become a teacher, but soon developed a deeper interest in studying psychology, philosophy, and pedagogy. Woolley graduated from the University of Chicago in 1897 at the age of 22 with a bachelor's degree in philosophy and continued at the institution to pursue her master's degree. In 1900, Woolley graduated summa cum laude from the University of Chicago with a doctorate in psychology, becoming one of the first women to earn a doctorate in this field. After completing her education, Woolley began teaching at Mount Holyoke College for Women in South Hadley, Massachusetts, where she taught courses in logic, introductory philosophy, and psychology. During her time, she established a psychological laboratory. Woolley met Paul Gerhardt Woolley during her undergraduate years at the University of Chicago. Paul was a physician, pathologist, and epidemiologist. They became engaged during her graduate studies. They were married in 1905 in Yokohama, Japan, and they divorced in 1929 due to Paul wanting to see another woman, and Woolley was deeply affected by the divorce and experienced a nervous breakdown. Paul was relocated for his job a couple of times, so Woolley moved with him. She relocated to Yokohama, Japan, in order to marry him. Shortly after their marriage, Paul was transferred to the Philippines for work, and Woolley accompanied him. And later on, Paul was transferred to Thailand within the same year, and the couple relocated once again. Following their move, Woolley became pregnant and moved back to the United States. Their daughter, Eleanor Faxon Woolley, was born on August 26, 1907. And then Woolley gave birth to a second daughter, Charlotte, on March 5, 1914. Her constant relocations for her husband's career made it difficult for her to maintain consistent academic positions. This reflects the broader issue at the time, where women's careers were often expected to come second to their husbands. These experiences likely influenced her later focus on social structures and opportunity. Woolley faced significant barriers throughout her career. At the time, many institutions refused to hire married women regardless of their qualifications. On top of that, her frequent moves made it difficult to stay in one position long term. Even later in her career, she lost a position under circumstances that suggested bias and unfair treatment. Woolley took a year-long leave from work after her nervous breakdown after her divorce. Upon resuming her teaching duties, Columbia University requested her resignation in 1930, citing budget cuts, despite earlier assurances that she would be transferred from the institute to the college if such cuts occurred. Woolley discovered that her supervisor had undermined her by asserting she was not an effective teacher. She began searching for new employment, but was unsuccessful, largely due to economic challenges of the Great Depression. As a result, Woolley became dependent on her daughter, Eleanor, and resided with Eleanor and her husband. Woolley's challenges weren't unique to her. They reflected broader structural barriers for women in early psychology. Even highly educated women often had fewer job opportunities, lower pay, and less recognition than their male counterparts. Due to the many relocations of her husband, Woolley held multiple jobs. From roughly 1905 to 1906, she was an experimental psychologist with the Bureau of Education in the Philippines. From 1909 to 1911, she was the professor at the University of Cincinnati, and she taught philosophy there. From 1911 to 1921, she was the director of the Cincinnati Vocation Bureau, which was dedicated to improving working conditions for women and children. From 1921 to 1922, she became the first female president of the National Vocational Guidance Association. From 1921 to 1925, she was a psychologist and associate director at the Merrill Palmer School in Detroit, Michigan. From 1925 to 1930, she was the director of child welfare research at Teachers College at Columbia University. One of Woolley's most important contributions was her study, The Mental Traits of Sex, published in 1903. At the time, many scientists believed women were naturally less intelligent than men, but these claims weren't based on solid evidence. Woolley tested 50 university students, 25 men and 25 women, using more than 70 psychological tests. These tests measured things like memory, reaction time, motor skills, and sensory abilities. What made her work especially important was how she analyzed the data. Instead of just comparing averages, she looked at how much the scores overlapped between men and women. She found that the results overlapped a lot, meaning men and women performed very similarly overall. There were some small differences, but they were very inconsistent and not large enough to support claims of overall superiority. This directly challenged the belief that biology determined intelligence and showed that men and women are much more alike than different. Woolley also focused on applying psychology to real-world issues, especially in education and development. As director of the Cincinnati Vocation Bureau, she studied teenagers during a time when child labor was common. She conducted a large, long-term study of over 1,500 adolescents, comparing those who stayed in school with those who entered the workforce. Her findings showed that students who stayed in school developed more intellectually over time, while those who worked showed slower cognitive growth. This research provided strong evidence supporting education reform and limiting child labor. Later, she worked at the Merrill Palmer School, where she studied early childhood development and helped create more standardized ways to measure children's growth. Overall, her work showed how psychology could be used to improve real-world conditions. Another contribution of Woolley's was that she was also active in the women's suffrage movement while she was located in Cincinnati. Woolley's work continues to influence psychology today. Her findings helped lay the foundation for the gender similarities hypothesis, which states that men and women are similar in most psychological traits. Modern research continues to support this idea, showing that differences are usually small and influenced by context. She also influenced research methods. Her focus on looking at distributions and variability, not just averages, is now standard in psychology. Another major contribution is her emphasis on environmental factors. She argued that socialization and opportunity shape development, which is still a key idea in modern psychology. Finally, she helped bring attention to bias in research, encouraging scientists to question whether their conclusions are based on evidence or assumptions. Because of this, her influence extends far beyond her own studies. For example, modern efforts to encourage girls in STEM fields are based on the idea that ability differences are not fixed, but shaped by opportunity and environment. This directly reflects Woolley's argument that social factors play a major role in development. In conclusion, Helen Bradford Thompson Woolley was both a scientist and a trailblazer. She challenged harmful assumptions about women's abilities and helped make psychology more scientific and evidence-based. She applied psychology to real-world issues like education and child development, showing how research can improve people's lives. At the same time, her life reflects the challenges women face in academia, including discrimination and instability. Despite this, she built a meaningful career and helped open doors for future women in psychology. Her legacy is not just in what she discovered, but in how she changed the way psychology is done. Ultimately, Woolley didn't just study human differences, she helped change how we understand them. Looking back, Woolley's work reminds us how important it is to question assumptions and rely on evidence. Her research not only changed psychology, but also helped challenge unfair limitations placed on people based on gender.